Hello and happy Friday. Today we're going to start our writing instruction um, out with just looking at what we've done and looking at our past assignment. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the online classroom here, and I'm going to go to the assignments tab at the top. Click on it. Once you click on the assignments tab, I want you to look for your writing assignment from this week. Okay, it should have been on Wednesday 4/22. All right, remember it says it's due Friday, which is today. And it closes at 10:30. So this is your view of the assignment once again when you click on it. And remember, I showed you a few ways to access the form, okay? If you come here to your essay draft, and that's only if you saved it here, don't worry, don't get frustrated. There are a couple different ways you could have done this, and we'll go through those ways. These three little dots here, if you click on it, you can choose Open in Word. When you do that, you have to give it a second, and it's going to pop up. Just give it a moment. Sometimes you get these other little pop-ups. So I'm gonna click Office, and then I'm gonna click Yes on this message. And it should any second now, voila. It brings up the actual essay draft in a Word document, okay? And please, if you have any problems, look at the previous video where we went to file, and we saved your work, okay? But I'm going to use the arrow to go back out. That's just one way to access it. So I'm going to X out of this. The other thing that you may have done is you may have saved it to your desktop, right? And so I saved mine to my desktop. So I'm just going to quickly go over how to access it from your desktop. So what you got to do is look around on your desktop, and remember you were supposed to title it with your name and Essay Draft 1. So that's what I did, Miss Garner, Essay Draft. So I'm going to double click here. And it brings up my work that I had yesterday. So let's briefly talk about what we've already done. We have done introduction. We have done body number 1. We have done, and I'm sorry, my scroll button went a little fast. Let me go back up. We have done the introduction, which is here. Body paragraph number 1. And then we have also done, which was just yesterday, body paragraph number 2, which you see coming up here. And then the last thing we did was our conclusion, which was here. So now that brings us to the final stage in our writing. So for that, I'm going to go to my PowerPoint. All right. So as I stated, we've done all of the pieces. We had a writing plan, we have our essay, and now we are at our final portion. This is the last step before you actually submit your writing. So what you need to be thinking is, okay, now I finished my essay. I'm going to go back through it to edit anything that needs fixing. And you're going to do that using what I call the edit strategy. Edit is just as it is spelled, E-D-I-T. Do you see how the E, the D, the I, and the T is bolded? Well, that's because these are reminders for you, reminders that help you get the very best possible grade on your essay that you can get. So I'm going to show you, as I edit through and look at mine, how you should be using this edit process with yours. So before we do that, let me bring up my essay. So I have my essay here. I'm going to take it all the way to the top, and then I'm going to minimize it by pressing that little minus sign here. And then we're going to come back here. So the first thing I want you to look at is the E here. All right. The E stands for three very familiar terms that you already know: evidence, examples, and elaboration equals excellent score. So if you notice here with evidence and elaboration, I have it highlighted kind of in a bluish color. And that's just serving as a reminder to all of us that when it comes to writing evidence and elaboration, we have the option, and you can do it with all three, but you have to show some differences there. So just to make it easy for us, those are highlighted because the evidence and elaboration is what I want you to focus on in your own words, writing in your own words. So remember, the evidence, what this process is telling us to do is to go and check and make sure that we have at least two pieces of evidence, two examples, and at least two details where we're elaborating on it. So 2, 2, and 2, that's your rule of thumb, okay? And I'm going to show you where that 2 comes into place. So the first thing, I know that evidence, examples, and elaboration are only in our body paragraphs. So what this editing strategy is telling you to do is check your body first, okay? So the first thing I'm going to look at is it tells me that I have to have two pieces of evidence, right? So when I look here, I do. This was evidence because it was restated in my own words, right? Remember, we had a topic sentence, a point A, and a point B on our writing plan? Well, under my first point A, I have evidence, paraphrased in my own words. I have one example, just like one evidence, one example, and then I have my example in quotation marks here. And then I have elaboration. When I move to point B, I have the same thing for my second mini topic here, which is being affordable. I have evidence. I have an example specifically from the text. And then I have some elaboration here. So that's 2, right? Let's quickly go over that again. Under my first mini point A, I have at least one piece of evidence here stated in my own words in a paraphrase, at least one example, and at least a detail that states my elaboration. When I get to my second thing, mini point, same thing. Evidence, examples quoted directly from the text, and elaboration. So that takes care of my 2 because I did 1 for each mini point. So now I'm going to go down and I'm going to check and make sure I did the same thing in body paragraph number 2. 2 mini points, health and opportunity, right? So health and exercise, you have to exercise is if you want to be healthy. So it's the same thing. I have evidence, right? I have examples from the text. That's why you see my quotation marks there. And I have elaboration. Now, let's keep going down here. Again, we passed this sentence, but evidence, which was paraphrased in my own words, right? Then there's also the fact that these programs create job opportunities for people. I have more evidence in those quotation marks directly from the text. And look at my elaboration. Something else to think about is that with more bike sharing and etc. Right? So that's at least 2 pieces of evidence for body paragraph number 2, 2 pieces of examples, and 2 areas in my body paragraph number 2 where I elaborated. So now I can move on to the very next thing, which is my D, different sentence types. So the first thing I want to check for, and these are really easy things to check for before you actually reread, okay? So what we're doing right now is we're going through and looking at these specific things prior to actually rereading the text. So now we're on D, different sentence types. First one says asks at least 2 questions. At least 2 questions. So let's go back to the paper. I'm going to go all the way up to the top because I know one way I've already taken care of that is with a question mark here. I asked a question here, and I don't need to go any further down, even though I know I did ask another question. That takes care of at least, that means at minimum, you need to have 2 questions. Makes at least 2 bold statements. All right, so then I'm going to go back to my paper. Oops, I'm sorry. Go back to my paper. And a bold statement is just a statement with an exclamation point. So I have one here, right? And now I'm going to search further down to make sure I've included at least 2. And again, if I have more, that's fine, but I at least need to show 2. And I see one right here in body paragraph number 1, bold statement. So now that I have done that, I can go back, go to the next bullet point. Proper use of commas. That's where you go through and you make sure, and again, I'm not going to go through every little step here because a lot of this stuff is, it's just things that we've already kind of done. But you need to make sure that if you listed anything, you have commas separating your ideas. I will show you a quick example where I used commas. So that's right here where it says, well, for one, these programs allow people to use their bikes at their convenience. That's one instance where I've used commas properly. If you come down here, and this just caught my eye really quickly, this means that although other forms of transportation, such as taxis or Ubers, are available, comma, bike sharing is a cheaper option. So I'm not going to waste our video time with going through every little piece, although I want you to go through every little piece of yours because I'm going to do the same. But this is an instructional video, so I have to get through the different portions so you can kind of understand, okay? Next is quotation marks and underlined article titles. So the only thing that really needs to be underlined is the name of each article that I reference. And that's very important because, one, you want to make sure you reference the articles that you read within your body paragraphs, right? So here, the first thing I'm going to look at, it's at quotation marks and underlined. But I'm going to look at my underlined first because I want to show you guys something. If you want to underline, all you have to do is highlight where you want to underline. And then you come over here. You see where mine is highlighted? That's because I bolded and underlined it. If I click on that U, it takes the underline away. You see that? But I highlighted Bikes to Borrow, and when I was originally writing, I wanted that underline. So I'm going to click back on that U, and it gives it an underline. So that takes care of my underline. Made sure that happened. Now, for quotation marks, that's just reminding me that anything that I quoted directly from the text, I need to have quotation marks around. And I have that in both body paragraphs. Okay, so let's go to the very next thing in the slide, which is simple, compound, and complex sentences. Now, we all remember what a simple sentence is. It states one idea. It is a sentence that contains a subject and a predicate. We remember what a compound sentence is. We remember, hopefully, that a complex sentence has both an independent and a dependent clause, things that we learned at the very beginning of the school year. A compound sentence combines 2 ideas. Your thesis statement is an example of a compound sentence, if we remember correctly, because it states 2 ideas. Helpful and, here's our subordinating conjunction, brings positive changes. So again, I'm not going to go totally through that. This is just showing you how to work this checking strategy. The last one is, I'm sorry, not the last one. The next one says incredible focus. Maintain the point you made in your thesis throughout your entire essay. So all that means is when I look at my essay, in my thesis statement, my first reason is that it was helpful. I need to make sure I talked about it being helpful in body paragraph number 1, and I showed various examples of that. I need to make sure that in body paragraph number 2, I talked about bringing positive changes, but that's not it, okay? If we're talking about being seriously focused throughout the paper, even when I get to my conclusion, I need to still, even though I have a counter argument here, I briefly mentioned the other side of the argument that bike sharing programs would create some problems. I still go back to my same point, so it's still focused. Remember I said, but although these problems could create frustration, I think the benefits outweigh the downfalls by far. So that's all that means. It means that you did not waver your opinion. Your opinion stayed strong and it stayed focused on whatever you stated in your thesis throughout your entire paper. The last one is T for terrific structure. Does your essay have at least 4 separate paragraphs? That's really easy to check. You're going to pull it up. Make sure you have an introduction that is indented and at least 2 spaces separated from body paragraph number 1, which is also indented. Remember, you indent by pressing the tab button. All right. And a body paragraph number 2 that is also indented and at least 2 spaces away from body paragraph number 1. And then, of course, when we go to the second page of my typed essay here, a concluding paragraph that's at least 2 spaces separated from body paragraph number 2. So that's how you check your structure. You check all of those things first. You use that edit strategy to check all of those little pieces. Once you have checked those little pieces, guys, that's when you want to go back through your essay and you want to actually look at all of your sentences, read your essay as a whole, and make sure there isn't anything you want to change or take away. Let me show you an example of that, okay? As I was reading and checking through mine, and I saved this change for when I got on here with you guys, I noticed here that I used the word so twice, right behind each other. Now, that's not to say I couldn't use the word so here and up here in body paragraph number 1. I could have also gotten down here and used it again. But as a writer, you want to make sure your writing does not sound so repetitive. And so as a self-editor, someone who's editing my own paper, I noticed this because being a good writer, I'm going to go back over everything in my paper and make sure not only that I have all of those edit pieces together, but I'm also going to make sure that I have my writing together, that it sounds good and it's flowing well. So I'm going to read this and I want you to see me come up with something different because you can do that that's why it was called Essay Draft 1, because your second draft, that's going to be your final draft. That's what you turn in to me. And that means you have went through, you've completed the edit process and you've read through it and just made some changes for the better. So here, my body paragraph number 1, at the end, it says, so instead of people having to spend a lot of money on transportation, they are able to use more money towards food and other daily essentials like medicine. So bike sharing is a wonderful solution to these types of problems and are a great benefit to neighborhoods. I think I'm going to take away this so, and I'm going to change that and write this. As you can see, bike sharing is a wonderful solution to these types of problems and are a great benefit to neighborhoods. So then what I want to do is I'm going to go back a few sentences back, and read it to make sure it flows well with the rest of my writing. So let me start here. The author explains that often people aren't able to afford cars, bus fares, or other forms of transportation. This means that although other forms of transportation, such as taxis or Ubers, are available, bike sharing is a cheaper option. So instead of people having to spend a lot of money on transportation, they are able to use more money towards food and other daily essentials like medicine. As you can see, Bike sharing is a wonderful solution to these types of problems and are a great benefit to neighborhoods. I think I'm satisfied with that. That sounds good enough. I want you guys to go back through and I want you to go ahead and edit your own writing. Remember, if this just got too frustrating for you and you couldn't figure out how to type it online, I do take written drafts. Your parent will just have to either email it to me. I gave my email in yesterday's video. You'll have to go back and review it. Or they can send pictures of your essay to me in Dojo. Here is the very last and most important step. Make certain, absolute certain, that you save it. So that means you're going to go up here, click on that little save guy there, the little square. But to make sure you saved it, click File for me and go down to Save. Click it, and now it's saved. Okay? Now, here's the last trick I'm going to show you before I let you guys get back to what you're doing. In the actual online classroom, when I go here, if you're one of those people who actually wrote within this document, because some people just opened up a Word document and typed in there, I'm going to click here and show you something. Click on those three dots and go to Open in Word. I open up in Word. Remember, for some reason, it gives me this. So I click Open Office 2016. I'll click Yes. And now that document is going to pop up on my screen. See here? Now, if you typed your entire essay here on the actual assignment piece, and when you're done actually typing it, you click Save. I'm going to show you what happens, okay? So I'm just going to click something here, and I'm going to save it. File, Save. When I X out, and I go back to the document, open it up, give it a moment. The online system is not always my friend here. Do you see how it automatically saved there? I'm going to go through that again because I want you to see it, okay? So I'm going to close it. This is a really easy way to turn in your assignment. If I click on the three dots here, click, and I choose Open in Word, it's going to bring my actual assigned document right back up. Any second now, Mr. Internet. And when it brings it up, I can type on that document, click Save, and after I click Save, when I go back into the online system where the actual assignment is, all of my work should have automatically saved there. So I have tried to do this video for you guys about 3 times now, and the internet has been giving me problems each time. So forgive me. Yeah, it's not going to work for us, but that's okay. I just wanted you guys to see that once you go here, you click on those buttons, click Open in Word. If you type on that document that comes up, it's going to save it here. It's going to save it in the document, just like it did mine. So then when you're done and you close it or submit it or however it shows on your end, it's going to have all of that information right there for you, okay? Last but not least, please do not stress over this because you're going to have another paper to write. And guess what? I'm going to go through all of the same steps again. I'm going to keep doing that until you learn how to write or at least get comfortable with writing an essay. Because even though you're no longer going to be state tested on writing an essay in 4th grade, I really care about you guys and you will be tested on it in 5th grade. So it's better to go into 5th grade with a working knowledge of how to do this than to go into 5th grade with no experience with it at all. Because 5th grade is harder than 4th. So, um, as your teacher, I just wouldn't feel comfortable not teaching this to you. Okay? With that said, I love you guys and happy writing. See you guys at our class meeting today.